Barry, what accounts for Mahathir's persistent influence over the Malaysian political system? Is it a war chest that he has? Is it that he's living his life through his children who are now in corporate and political life? Or is it that he's a very charismatic man?
It's more the latter. It's more that he is charismatic, but it's also the fact that he was in power for a long time, and he put in place, and he had very strong views and lots of ideas to remake the country, and he remade the country in detail across 22 years, and that's not easily undone. And he is jealous of his legacy. He guards it fairly seriously, and so it isn't because he's exercising power necessarily through other people or anything else, but he's trying to keep it on track, and he's been pretty successful.
But why do you think he gave up power? Why did he, at that time, how was it possible to unseat him? And why didn't he just carry on and die in office?
It's true, a lot of people thought he would do that. And I myself went along with the prevailing view that he'd probably, die with his boots on, as they say. But in fact, I think there is a reason. Only he in his own mind knows exactly why. But I believe there were two reasons for him to quit when he did. First of all, I think he saw the examples around him, particularly of Suharto in Indonesia and Marcos in the Philippines. And for those people who overstayed their welcome to the point that they were pushed out, they had no chance of defending their legacy. They kind of went in disgrace, and he didn't want that to happen. And the second thing, he knew that he had lost the support of the majority of Malays in Malaysia. And he knew, although no one was prepared to try and push him, because anyone who tried to push him out usually got pushed out first, so no one was going to force him to go, but he knew in his own heart that the party could never recover that Malay vote until he left. He had been demonised to that extent over Anwar's dismissal.
Now, he installed Abdullah Badawi as his successor, but he also put Najib Tun Razak in as deputy. And both men, I imagine, in some ways reflect Mahathir's legacy, or he thought they would, or that they would continue it. What went wrong, and do you still think that Badawi was unfairly done by Mahathir?
Well, Mahathir did break his promise in fairly spectacular fashion not to intervene in politics. So he not only interfered in politics, but he really turned on Abdullah and just helped unseat him.
Was that uncharacteristic? Don't you think that was just such a Mahathir thing to do?
I think Dr. Mahathir made a mistake. I think that he put Abdullah Badawi in there. First of all, Mahathir got rid of most of the really talented people who might challenge him, who might be rivals. So he was left with a different cast of people. And I think he believed that Abdullah Badawi was so grateful for taking him back after Abdullah had backed Tunku Razali in the split in the 80s, that he would do his bidding. And maybe he might have, but then there were a whole lot of young advisors who joined Abdullah Badawi, and they had other ideas. And when they started to take their country along different policies that seemed to be repudiating Dr. Mahathir, he felt personally affronted and hurt, and he wasn't going to take it.
He seems to take a particular umbrage at Khairi Jamaluddin, the son-in-law of Abdullah Badawi. What do you think that is?
It's very hard for me to say exactly, but I think he saw him as one of these young advisors, the influential advisors, who was otherwise, he believed Abdullah Badawi otherwise would have gone along and protected his legacy and continued his policies and been a good little boy as Prime Minister. But of those young advisors, there were only a few that you could really identify, and one of them, high profile, was Khairi.
Within the framework that you kind of sketch for us, the present Prime Minister, Najib Tun Razak, is also, I guess, second tier in terms of his quality. Is that what you're saying? And if that's true, how is he going to kind of deal with Mahathir's influence over the nation and, through groups like Perkasa?
Well, I think he's dealing with it quite well, actually. He has shown that he's not totally beholden to Dr. Mahathir in the sense that he's disagreed on a number of issues. On the other hand, I think he's been quite careful not to confront him or to insult him or to offend him, to alienate him. So Dr. Mahathir can live with that.
Do you think that part of the dynamics is the fact that Mahathir's son is now also poised to be one of the big players in UMNO, that he's trying to push his son to take some sort of position, or he might be doing a deal with Najib? Is that possible?
Who knows? I have no evidence to that effect. Mukritz is clearly backs his father's policies in some detail, even when the sibling, Marina, might disagree. So I think Mukritz is positioning himself for a future in the party, but there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge before we find out just how that will play out.
You've said recently at the Foreign Correspondents Club that that Najib is kind of half-hearted in his reform agenda. That he's done some things, he's gone somewhere down the road of reform, but that he's kind of half-hearted, and that he doesn't have the party's backing. How do you come to that conclusion?
Well, one of the reasons I don't think he's a natural reformer is that I've done a study of him in politics, and he's been in politics since he was 22, and he was 55 when he became Prime Minister. In fact, he'd been in politics longer than Abdullah Badawi, even though he's younger. And you can look at his record. I mean, he's an UMNO insider. He's from the sort of, the old guard, the family, aristocratic background. He went into politics, not because, like Dr. Mahathir, he wanted to change things, he had ideas. He went there because his father died. And he hasn't stood for any particular thing. So he's not a natural reformer, but he's smart enough and energetic enough to know that he's got to make some gestures towards reform and deliver on some of them, because Abdullah Badawi promised reform and never delivered, and he got thrown out. So he's doing what he has to do, but he's facing opposition from the old guard. They figure that there was a one way they're prospering from the old way of doing things. It's worked for more than half a century, and they're not going to let things change drastically.
Is there a real conflict between staying in power and instituting reforms?
Yes, there probably is. I think that if he has definitely got to make some gestures, I mean, he's got to go some way down the reform path, otherwise he's going to get thrown out. On the other hand, if he goes too far down the reform path, he'll get thrown out of UMNO by the old guard. There's tension there.
Were you aghast, as many Malaysians were, that Mahathir came out and openly backed Perkasa because it is so kind of patently chauvinistic in its expression of its ideals?
Yes, I think I think he didn't do himself any favours. It doesn't help his reputation at all. Ideally, a person like that, who's been the leader of the country for a long time, with an international reputation, he would position himself as a father figure and stand above the fray, take a moral high ground, but to get, not only to take sides, but to get involved in sort of fairly racist discussions and everything else like that, does nothing for his legacy and his reputation.
But is that consistent with who he was? I mean, who he's been all these years, that he's never been that careful about his reputation, about his image. He's always been willing to come up, fighting, and throwing the punch and, not pulling punches. I mean, how you've had, interactions with him, you've interviewed him. What do you feel about the man? Do you think he cares that people now think that he's made a wrong move by backing Perkasa?
No, he kind of never cares. If he does care, he cares deep inside, and he certainly doesn't show it. But no, he's not. Dr. Mahathir's whole attitude in life has been, he instinctively knows what's right. He alone knows what's right. He has no doubt whatsoever what's right, and he acts on it, and regardless. And that paid off when he was on the way up.
So he hasn't mellowed over the years. Clearly, he's now in his 80s, and he seems to be quite the character. He's going to keep to a certain script. He's very strong. He's going to do it his way, as it were. Do you think there's anything that will change it for him, that there's a game changer for the Mahathir politics?
No, I don't think so. I read his memoirs, A Doctor in the House, 840 pages, and you've got to say he's still doing it his way.
Oh, you accuse him of being selective in his memoirs. Could you tell us more about that?
He chooses to emphasise some things, and he totally ignores other things as well. And he doesn't. It's a very difficult thing to explain. He doesn't. If people say, of course it's self-serving. Everyone writes self-serving memoirs when the politicians write. It isn't just it's self-serving. I could have written a better book for him that was more self-serving for Mahathir than he's done for himself. It's a bit of a dog's breakfast. It's all over the place. You want to know what he feels about the new economic policy? Well, there's about 10, 12 different references throughout the book, and some seem to contradict the other. That's the way he feels about it, and he does it. You would think that he might even rely on his own government's record, government documents to support his case. He doesn't. He doesn't cite anything. It's just off the top of his head. And quite often, he either forgets something accidentally, or not quite so accidentally. He leaves out big pieces. And at other times, he's leaves out things that I find difficult to believe that was inadvertent.
Thank you very much.
Okay.